Welcome to English Podcasts with Chris
and Sue. In this podcast, we're going to be looking at some ways of getting some learning strategies and some tips for busy lifestyles learning English.
Yes, and indeed, in the next podcast, which is 211, you'll be able to work on more detail on these very natural idioms that we use quite freely.
So just listen out for these idioms.
Yes, we've got 16 of the idioms. Here they are. The first one.
Under the cosh.
Dive into.
Jam-packed.
Hectic. The
elephant in the room.
Pockets of time.
Squeeze in.
Learn on the go.
Game changers.
Common hurdles.
Tough moments.
Tackle.
Small victories.
Put a spanner in the works.
Being too hard on yourself.
Hit the nail on the head.
So if you're feeling under pressure and under the cosh to learn English, then rest assured you're probably not on your own there.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Sue.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of English Podcasts.
We're excited to dive into today's topic, especially for those of you with jam-packed schedules. We're talking about language learning strategies and tips tailored for busy lifestyles.
Yes, indeed. Learning a new language can be really challenging. But I think with the right strategies, anyone can make progress, even if they have a very hectic schedule.
So let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Many people say they're too busy to learn a new language. And how do we overcome this very common obstacle?
Well, it is a very common obstacle, isn't it? And the key really is to find those pockets of time during the day when you can squeeze in the time to learn the new language, do some language practice.
Absolutely. There's always going to be time, whether it's during your commute, while exercising, or even doing the dishes or during your lunch break. There are opportunities everywhere. And the magic formula is 20 minutes a day, every day. That's 7 days a week and 365 days a year.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing there, Chris, is that there are so many language learning resources out there, in fact, including our own at English.Podcasts. But the question is, how can learners choose the best ones for their busy lifestyle?
I think it's all about finding resources that are convenient and efficient. There are loads of apps, there's Babel, Duolingo, etc. There are great podcasts like English-Podcasts and our fabulous YouTube channel. And there are lots of online courses, we're about to bring one out as well, that allow you to learn on the go and are ideal for busy individuals.
Absolutely. And the thing I'd like to add here actually is using technology. For example, speech recognition on your phone, language exchange apps, flashcards. These can be real game changers, really useful.
They are, but setting realistic goals is crucial when you have a busy schedule. How can listeners effectively manage their time for language learning?
Well, of course, the thing is you need to set achievable goals, short-term goals, breaking down your language learning journey into smaller milestones that really fit into your day and to really fit into your kind of routine. That's the key. Consistency as well. That's what you need to do.
Well, often immersion is touted as one of the best ways to learn a language, go to the country, live in the country, etc. I'm a bit skeptical about this, and we can talk about this in a future podcast. But how can someone immerse themselves in English, for example, when they can't travel or live in a foreign country?
Well, this is a great point, and people often say, you need to live in the country to really learn the language. Well, I do think there are other techniques you can use. For example, you can try to create a mini immersion experience at home. Change your phone language, follow social media accounts in the language you want to learn, really important. And I would say especially watching TV shows in English, shows and movies, with English as a subtitle, if you put the subtitles on.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit against the subtitles because I think people are reading. But, how we know that everyone faces challenges in their language learning journey, but what are some of the common hurdles and how can our listeners overcome them?
Well, I think it's normal to face challenges, and learning a new language is definitely a challenge. So you need to get into the mindset of being positive and adaptable. And I'm going to say adaptable because if you find one strategy isn't working for you, try another. But the key is consistency and trying to be positive really through those tough moments.
Exactly, yeah. We've both been through our fair share of obstacles in learning French. We'd like to share some of our experiences and strategies for overcoming them that might help you, our listeners.
Absolutely. So what would you say are the most common challenges that people face when they're trying to fit their language learning into a busy schedule?
Yeah, I think there are a few. I think one of them is time constraints. People feel that they don't have enough time. But as I said, and I will say again, is you've got to make the time because it will not, time is not elastic. Maintaining consistency is another one. This is why I said earlier, 7 days a week, 20 minutes a day, 365 days a year. And dealing with disappointment or just giving up with language learning. There's quite a long list, but it's crucial to acknowledge these challenges to effectively tackle them.
Yeah, sure. As you say, disappointment and the time, this is what people often cite as their biggest challenge. So I know you're learning Spanish. Tell me, what kind of ways, how do you try to find the time for your language learning, Chris?
Well, last year I did a course in Spanish and I used to keep a journal and all the rest of it. Now I'm just using an application at the moment, but I'm going to get some conversation practice somehow. I'm going to find these somewhere in Toulouse. But it's mostly about prioritizing. And I found small pockets of time during my day, whether it's during my commute, waiting in line somewhere, or even during short breaks at work. But consistency in these small moments adds up over time. And I'm on a 704-day streak. That is 704 uninterrupted days of learning Spanish. And I don't want to lose that.
Wow. So you've really hit the nail on the head there. Consistency is the key. But sometimes, did you find it difficult to stay motivated? How did you keep that sort of momentum going? Because you are busy in your life.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, I learned Spanish to travel, and I travel quite a lot. And the last travel that I did this month, in fact, I used Spanish. But it's all about setting achievable goals and then celebrating those little victories. They don't come all the time, but like when you understand something or you're able to, listen to a dialogue and know what they're actually talking about. When motivation is low, I try to turn to people in the community because there is a community on these applications as well. But there are also language learning groups. I know there's some in Toulouse, there are forums, or even friends who speak Spanish and have similar goals. Their support can be incredibly motivating. For English people, though, you've heard of 6 degrees of separation, Facebook, it says
Yes,
you're
yes.
separated by 6 people to know everybody in the world.
Yes.
Well, I believe that there are 6 degrees of separation. That is that you're never more than 6 kilometres from an Irish pub, unless you live in the middle of nowhere. And an Irish pub, if you're of the age to go to a pub, you don't have to drink alcohol, obviously, but there'll be probably English speakers in there who you can get to know and speak to.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, actually, to connect with people. But of course, we're talking about fitting this into a busy schedule. And as we've said, it's you've got to be consistent. But life is unpredictable. Stuff happens. You don't always feel you have the time. And these challenges can really put a spanner in the works, as we say, when you're learning a language. But so when things don't go exactly as planned for you in your routine, what do you do?
Well, I think flexibility is the key. As you say, life happens, and sometimes you need to adjust your goals or methods. But learning to adapt and not being too hard on yourself, especially during challenging times, this is crucial for long-term success. And we're talking about long-term because language learning is, despite what some of these books tell you, it is a hell of a journey. It's a long time. It takes ages, and maybe it never finishes.
Yeah, I agree. Language learning never finishes, I think. Well, I think we've covered all the points there, and that brings us to the end of today's episode. So to the listeners, we hope that you found all these tips useful to you and try to fit everything into your busy lifestyle.
And remember, it's not about finding time, it's about making time. You will never find any time, but you can actually make some time. Thanks for joining us on English Podcasts.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review.
To catch all the latest from English Podcasts, you can follow us on Instagram at english.podcasts and on YouTube at english-podcasts.
And visit our website at english-podcast.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.